One whispered question at a company party changed everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop playing it safe. She never thought a boring office party would change her life forever. Maya had been working at the same marketing company for 3 years, and tonight was supposed to be just another company event she had to attend. The kind where everyone pretends to have fun while secretly checking their phones and counting minutes until they can go home. Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting her black dress one more time. It was elegant but not too flashy, exactly what she always wore to these events. Safe, professional, forgettable. She grabbed her small purse and headed out, already planning how she would make polite conversation for exactly 2 hours before making her escape. The hotel ballroom was decorated with golden lights and white flowers. Classical music played softly in the background while people in expensive suits and dresses mingled around cocktail tables. Maya recognized most faces from different departments, but she didn't really know anyone well enough to have a real conversation. She was the type who kept work and personal life completely separate. She picked up a glass of sparkling water from the bar and found a quiet corner where she could observe the room. Her boss was telling the same story he always told at these events. The accounting team was huddled together looking as uncomfortable as she felt. Everything was perfectly predictable and boring, just like always. That's when she noticed him. A tall man with dark hair standing near the presentation screen. But he wasn't looking at the speaker, he was looking directly at her. When their eyes met, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Genuine interest from a stranger. She quickly looked away, feeling her cheeks warm up. During the presentation about quarterly results, Maya found herself glancing in his direction again. Each time he was still watching her with a small smile on his face. It wasn't creepy or uncomfortable. It was curious, like he was trying to figure something out about her. Maya had always been invisible at these events, so this attention felt strange but not unwelcome. When the formal presentations ended and people started moving around more freely, Maya decided to step outside for some fresh air. The hotel had a beautiful rooftop terrace that most people didn't know about. She had discovered it during last year's holiday party, when she needed to escape a particularly awkward conversation with her colleague about his divorce. The cool night air felt good against her skin after being in the crowded ballroom. City lights stretched out below like scattered diamonds, and for a moment, Maya felt peaceful. She loved moments like this, quiet, away from expectations and small talk. "Beautiful view," a voice said behind her. Maya turned and saw the man from inside. Up close, she could see he had kind eyes and a genuine smile. He didn't look like the typical corporate guys she usually met at these events. "It is," Maya replied, surprised by how natural her voice sounded. Usually she felt nervous talking to strangers, especially attractive ones. "Most people don't know about this terrace." "I'm David," he said, extending his hand. "I'm with the London office, here for a few meetings." "Maya," she said, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and confident. "I work in the marketing department downstairs." They stood there for a moment, both looking out at the city. Maya expected the usual awkward silence that happened when two strangers tried to make conversation, but instead she felt surprisingly comfortable. "Can I ask you something?" David said. "You looked like you were planning your escape route the entire time during the presentation." Maya laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "Was it that obvious?" "Only because I was doing the same thing," he admitted. "These events are always the same, aren't they? Everyone standing around pretending to be fascinated by profit margins and team-building exercises." "Exactly," Maya said, feeling understood for the first time all evening. "I usually just count down the minutes until I can politely leave." They started talking about work, but not in the boring way people usually did at office parties. David told her about the differences between the London and local offices, and Maya found herself sharing stories about her colleagues that she had never told anyone. He listened carefully to everything she said, asking follow-up questions that showed he was genuinely interested. Time passed without either of them realizing it. The sounds from the party inside grew quieter as people started leaving. Maya checked her watch and was shocked to see they had been talking for over an hour. "I should probably head back inside," she said, though she didn't really want to. "Or," David said with that same curious smile, "we could take a walk through the hotel. I saw some interesting art in the lobby earlier." Maya hesitated. This was exactly the kind of spontaneous thing she never did. Her usual routine was to attend the required amount of time, then go straight home to her apartment where she would change into comfortable clothes and watch something on her laptop until she fell asleep. But something about this night felt different. Maybe it was the way David looked at her like she was actually interesting. Maybe it was how easy it felt to talk to him. Or maybe it was just that for the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was just going through the motions of her carefully planned life. "Okay," she heard herself saying. "Let's go look at some art." They rode the elevator down to the lobby in comfortable silence. The hotel was elegant in an old-fashioned way, with marble floors and paintings of landscapes on the walls. David pointed out details Maya had never noticed before, even though she had been to this hotel for company events many times. As they walked slowly through the quiet corridors, their conversation shifted from work topics to more personal things. David told her about growing up in a small town before moving to London for his career. Maya shared her love of photography, something she rarely talked about because it seemed too personal for work conversations. "What kind of photography?" he asked as they paused in front of a large painting of a sunset over mountains. "Street photography mostly," Maya said. "I like capturing moments when people think nobody is watching. Real emotions, real connections." "That sounds beautiful," David said, and the way he said it made Maya believe he really meant it. They continued walking and talking, both aware that something special was happening between them, but neither wanting to rush or analyze it too much. The hotel lobby was mostly empty now, except for the night desk clerk reading a book behind the counter. Maya found herself telling David things she usually kept private. Her dreams of maybe starting her own photography business someday, her frustration with always playing it safe, her feeling that she was letting life pass by without really living it. David listened to everything with the same careful attention, occasionally sharing his own thoughts about feeling stuck in routines and wondering if there was more to life than just career success. Standing there in the quiet hotel lobby with its soft lighting and peaceful atmosphere, Maya realized this was the most honest conversation she had had with anyone in years. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen and understood by another person. The cool night breeze made Maya shiver slightly as they stepped back onto the rooftop terrace. The party sounds from inside had grown quieter, and most people had already left. David noticed her reaction immediately and without hesitation, slipped off his suit jacket. "Here," he said softly, draping it around her shoulders. The jacket was warm from his body heat and smelled faintly of his cologne, something subtle and expensive that made her feel dizzy in the best possible way. Maya pulled the jacket closer around herself, surprised by how intimate the simple gesture felt. She had dated before, of course, but no one had ever made her feel so cared for with such a small action. David's fingers lingered on her shoulders for just a moment longer than necessary, and she felt electricity shoot through her entire body. "Better?" he asked, his voice lower than it had been inside. "Much better," Maya whispered, looking up at him. In the soft glow of the city lights, his face looked different somehow, more intense. The playful smile from earlier had been replaced by something deeper, something that made her heart beat faster. They walked slowly to the edge of the terrace where the railing overlooked the busy street below. Cars moved like tiny lights in the darkness, and Maya could hear distant sounds of the city that never slept. But up here, in this quiet space they had found together, everything else felt far away. "Maya," David said quietly, turning to face her completely. "Can I tell you something?" She nodded, not trusting her voice to sound steady. "I've been to dozens of these company events over the years," he continued. "They're all the same. Boring presentations, fake conversations, everyone pretending to care about things they don't really care about. But tonight feels different." "Different how?" Maya asked, though she thought she knew what he meant. She felt it too, this strange magic that seemed to surround them both. "Different because of you," David said simply. "I keep feeling like I've been waiting to meet you without even knowing it." Maya felt her cheeks flush. She wasn't used to men being so direct with her, especially men who looked like David. In her normal life, she was the quiet one, the one who blended into the background. But tonight, standing here wearing his jacket and seeing the way he looked at her, she felt beautiful and interesting and alive. "I feel it too," she admitted quietly. "This whole night has been like stepping into someone else's life, someone braver than me." David stepped closer and Maya could feel the warmth radiating from his body. They were standing so close now that she had to tilt her head up to maintain eye contact. The space between them felt charged with possibility. "What if I told you," David said, his voice barely above a whisper, "that I've been thinking about you all evening? Not just your smile or the way you laugh, but wondering about all the things I don't know about you yet." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had never been good at flirting or playing games, but something about this moment made her feel bold in a way she had never experienced before. "What kinds of things?" she whispered back, surprised by her own courage. "Everything," David replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "What you think about when you're alone. What makes you happy. What you're afraid of. What you dream about when you let yourself really dream." The intensity in his voice made Maya feel weak in the knees. She gripped the railing behind her for support, acutely aware of every inch of space between them. "And what about you?" she asked, finding her voice again. "What do you think about?" David smiled, but it was different from his earlier smiles. This one was softer, more vulnerable. "Right now? Right now I'm thinking about how badly I want to know everything about you. And how crazy that is considering we just met a few hours ago." Maya felt something shift inside her chest. All her life she had been the careful one, the one who thought things through and made sensible decisions. But standing here in the dim light of the city, wearing this man's jacket and feeling more connected to him than she had ever felt to anyone, she wanted to be someone different, someone who took chances. "You want to know if I'm not wearing anything underneath?" she whispered, the words coming out before she could stop them. The question hung in the air between them, bold and shocking and completely unlike anything Maya had ever said before. She couldn't believe the words had come from her mouth, but she also couldn't regret them. David's eyes widened slightly and she saw him swallow hard. He nodded slowly, his gaze intense and focused entirely on her face. Maya felt a rush of power and excitement she had never experienced before. Here was this incredible man, clearly wanting her, and she had made him speechless with just a few words. It was thrilling and terrifying at the same time. But instead of feeling embarrassed or trying to take the words back, Maya felt a strange sense of freedom. For once in her life, she had said exactly what she was thinking without worrying about being proper or appropriate. David reached out slowly and touched her hand where it rested on the railing. His fingers were warm and gentle, but Maya could feel tension in his touch. "Maya," he said carefully, "I don't want you to say anything you'll regret tomorrow." His consideration for her feelings, even in this charged moment, made Maya's heart swell. Most men would have taken her words and run with them, but David was making sure she was comfortable. It made her want him even more. "I won't regret it," she said softly. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm being completely honest about what I want." David's thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. "And what do you want?" Maya looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but genuine caring and desire. "I want to stop being afraid of feeling things. I want to stop playing it safe all the time. I want to see what happens when I'm brave enough to follow my heart instead of my head." "That's a big change," David said gently. "I know," Maya replied. "But maybe it's time for a big change." They stood there for a long moment, both understanding that they were at a crossroads. Maya could feel her old self pulling her back toward safety and predictability, but she could also feel this new version of herself, the one who had whispered bold questions and meant every word, pushing her forward into unknown territory. David squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever happens next," he said, "I want you to know that meeting you tonight has been the most real thing that's happened to me in a very long time." The elevator ride down to the lobby felt different this time. Maya was acutely aware of David standing beside her, of the way his jacket still hung around her shoulders, of the electricity that seemed to spark between them every time they accidentally brushed against each other. The numbers on the elevator display counted down slowly, and with each floor Maya felt like she was moving further away from her old, predictable life. When the doors opened, they stepped into the nearly empty lobby. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and their footsteps echoed quietly in the spacious room. A few hotel staff members moved around efficiently, preparing for the night shift, but otherwise they were alone. "I should probably get going," Maya said, though every part of her wanted to stay. "I have that big presentation tomorrow morning, the one I've been preparing for weeks." David nodded, understanding but clearly disappointed. "And I have an early flight back to London." My meetings are finished, so there's no reason for me to stay longer. They stood there looking at each other, both aware that this was the moment where logic should take over, where responsible adults would exchange business cards, maybe connect on professional social media, and promise to stay in touch. Maya had played out this exact scenario dozens of times before with other men she had met at work events. But this felt completely different. The smart thing to do, Maya said slowly, would be to say goodnight and go back to our normal lives. The smart thing, David agreed, but his eyes told a different story. Maya thought about her presentation tomorrow. She had rehearsed it so many times she could probably give it in her sleep. She thought about her apartment, waiting for her with its carefully organized furniture and predictable routine. She thought about her 5-year career plan, typed up and saved on her computer, with specific goals and timelines all mapped out perfectly. Then she looked at David, really looked at him and saw something in his expression that made her chest tight with longing. He was looking at her like she was the most fascinating person he had ever met, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. "Maya," he said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like you're following a script that someone else wrote for you?" The question hit her like a physical blow. It was exactly how she had been feeling for months, maybe years, but had never been able to put into words. "Every day," she whispered. "I wake up and go to work and have the same conversations and attend the same meetings, and sometimes I feel like I'm watching it happen to someone else." David stepped closer. "What if tonight doesn't have to be part of that script? What if, just for once, we did something completely unexpected?" Maya felt her heart racing. She knew what he was asking, and she knew that her answer would change everything. The old Maya, the careful Maya, was screaming inside her head about all the reasons this was a bad idea. She barely knew this man. She had important responsibilities tomorrow. She wasn't the type of person who made impulsive decisions, but there was another voice, quieter but stronger, telling her that she had been playing it safe her entire life. And where had it gotten her? Alone in her apartment every night, going through the motions of a life that felt empty despite all her professional success. "I'm scared," Maya admitted quietly. "Of me?" David asked with concern. "No," Maya said quickly. "Of myself. Of what I might do if I stopped being careful for even one night." David reached out and gently took her hand. "What if being careful isn't protecting you anymore? What if it's just keeping you from living?" Maya looked down at their joined hands. His was larger than hers, with long fingers and a small scar near his thumb that she wondered about. She realized that she wanted to know the story behind that scar. She wanted to know everything about him. "I've never done anything like this before," she said. "Like what?" "Gone somewhere with a man I just met. Felt this connected to someone so quickly. Said things like I said upstairs." Maya felt her cheeks warm with the memory. David smiled gently. "For what it's worth, neither have I. This whole evening has been completely outside my normal experience, too." "Really?" "Really. I'm usually the guy who leaves these events early and spends the evening reading work emails in his hotel room. But something about you made me want to stay and see what would happen." Maya felt a flutter of excitement mixed with terror. "So what are you suggesting we do?" David was quiet for a moment, and Maya could see him choosing his words carefully. "I'm suggesting that maybe just this once we don't think about tomorrow. Maybe we just focus on tonight and see where it leads us." "And after tonight?" "I don't know," David said honestly. "Maybe this is just one perfect evening that we'll both remember forever. Maybe it's something more. But we'll never find out if we both go back to our rooms and spend the night wondering what might have been." Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She could feel herself standing at the edge of a cliff, and she could either step back to safety or jump into the unknown. Every instinct she had developed over her careful, planned life told her to step back. But when she opened her eyes and saw David looking at her with such hope and tenderness, she realized that maybe her instincts had been wrong about a lot of things. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay?" Maya nodded, feeling simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. "Let's see what happens when I stop being careful." David's face lit up with a smile that made Maya's knees weak. "Are you sure?" "No," Maya laughed. "I'm not sure about anything right now. But maybe that's exactly why I need to do this." David squeezed her hand. "We can take this as slow as you want. There's no pressure for anything to happen except whatever feels right to both of us." Maya felt a wave of gratitude for his consideration. It confirmed what she had sensed about him all evening, that he was genuinely a good person who cared about her comfort and feelings. "Thank you," she said, "for making this feel safe even though it's completely crazy." "It is completely crazy," David agreed with a grin. "But maybe the best things in life are a little bit crazy." As they walked toward the elevator that would take them upstairs, Maya felt like she was shedding her old skin. Tomorrow she might regret this decision. Tomorrow she might feel embarrassed or confused or scared. But tonight, for the first time in years, she felt truly alive. David's hotel room was on the 15th floor, with a large window that looked out over the city lights. Maya stood near the glass, watching the traffic move far below while David made coffee using the small machine on the desk. The room was elegant but impersonal, like all hotel rooms. But somehow it felt intimate with just the two of them there. "I can't believe I'm here," Maya said softly, more to herself than to David. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, bringing her a steaming cup. Maya accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. "Not second thoughts exactly. More like shock that I'm capable of doing something this spontaneous." David sat down in the chair by the window, leaving the small couch for Maya. She appreciated that he wasn't crowding her or making assumptions about what would happen next. Even in this intimate setting, he was giving her space to feel comfortable. "Tell me about your photography," he said, settling back with his own coffee. "You mentioned it earlier, but I'd love to hear more." Maya was surprised by the question. Most people, especially men she had just met, weren't genuinely interested in her hobbies. But David seemed truly curious, waiting patiently for her answer. "I started when I was in college," Maya began, sitting down on the couch and tucking her legs under her. "I was studying business because my parents thought it was practical, but I felt so disconnected from everything. Then I took a photography elective and something just clicked." "What kind of pictures do you like to take?" "People mostly, but not post portraits. I like capturing moments when people don't know they're being watched." A mother laughing at something her child said. An elderly couple holding hands on a park bench. Two friends saying goodbye at the train station. Maya felt herself relaxing as she talked about something she loved. There's something beautiful about genuine human emotion when people aren't performing for a camera. David leaned forward, interested. "That sounds like you're documenting real life instead of creating artificial moments." "Exactly," Maya said, excited that he understood. "Anyone can take a pretty picture of a sunset or a building, but catching that split second when someone's face shows exactly what they're feeling, that's magic to me." "Do you still do it regularly?" Maya's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Not as much as I used to. Work keeps me so busy, and by the time I get home I'm usually too tired to go out looking for interesting shots. I keep telling myself I'll make time for it, but somehow there's always something else that seems more important." "That's sad," David said gently. "It's clear how much you love it. Your whole face lights up when you talk about it." Maya felt a flutter of warmth at his observation. "What about you? Do you have something you're passionate about outside of work?" David was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee cup. "I used to write," he said eventually. "Short stories mostly. Nothing that ever got published, but I enjoyed the process of creating something from nothing." "Used to? Yeah, same story as yours, I suppose. Life got busy, priorities shifted, and somehow I convinced myself that writing was a luxury I couldn't afford." He looked up at her with a rueful smile. "Funny how we abandon the things that make us happiest in the name of being responsible adults." Maya felt a deep connection to his words. "When did you last write anything?" "Honestly? Probably 2 years ago. I keep a notebook by my bed and sometimes I'll jot down an idea, but I haven't actually sat down to write a complete story in ages." "That's terrible," Maya said without thinking, then immediately felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to judge." "No, you're right. It is terrible. I used to think of myself as a writer who happened to have a day job, but somewhere along the way I became a consultant who used to write. I'm not sure when that shift happened." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both lost in their own thoughts about dreams deferred and passions neglected. Maya realized that this was the most honest conversation she had had in months, maybe years. In her regular life, people asked about her job, her weekend plans, her opinion on current events. But nobody ever asked about the things that actually mattered to her. "Can I tell you something?" Maya said suddenly. "Of course." This conversation right now is the first time in forever that someone has asked me about something I actually care about. Not my quarterly targets or my opinion on the new office coffee machine or whether I watched the latest popular show. You asked about photography because you could tell it mattered to me. David set down his coffee cup and looked at her seriously. That makes me sad, Maya. You deserve to have people in your life who care about the things that make you who you are. I think I've gotten so used to keeping those parts of myself private that I forgot how good it feels to share them with someone who's genuinely interested. Well, I am genuinely interested in all of it. The photography, the dreams you mentioned earlier about maybe starting your own business, the way you see the world. David paused. I know we just met, but I feel like I'm seeing a side of you that not many people get to see. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, though she couldn't explain exactly why. You are. I don't usually talk about this stuff with anyone. Why not? Maya considered the question seriously. I guess because it makes me feel vulnerable. It's easier to talk about safe topics like work or the weather. When you tell someone about the things you really care about, you're giving them the power to hurt you. But you're also giving them the chance to understand you and connect with you in a real way. True. Maya looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about all the people in all those buildings, probably having safe, surface-level conversations just like she usually did. I think I've been so afraid of being hurt that I forgot what it felt like to be truly seen by another person. David stood up and moved to sit on the couch beside her, though he maintained a respectful distance. For what it's worth, I feel exactly the same way. This whole evening has been like remembering what it's like to have a real conversation with someone. Is that why you never married? Maya asked, then immediately felt embarrassed for being so forward. Sorry, that's probably too personal. No, it's okay. And yes, I think that's part of it. I've dated, had relationships, but I always felt like I was playing a role rather than being myself. Eventually, it became easier to just focus on work and avoid the whole thing altogether. That's exactly how I feel, Maya said, surprised by how much they had in common. Like I'm performing the part of a successful woman with her life together, when really I feel lost most of the time. But you don't seem lost to me, David said softly. You seem like someone who's been hiding her true self for so long that she's forgotten how incredible she is. Maya felt her breath catch. No one had ever described her that way before. You barely know me. Maybe. But sometimes you can learn more about a person in one honest conversation than in months of surface-level interaction. David reached over and gently took her hand. And what I've learned about you tonight is that you're thoughtful, creative, brave enough to take risks, and more interesting than you give yourself credit for. Maya looked down at their joined hands, feeling overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't name. I don't feel brave. You're here, aren't you? You took a chance on a stranger and opened yourself up to something unknown. That takes courage. As dawn began to creep across the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, Maya realized that something fundamental had shifted inside her during this conversation. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The morning sunlight streaming through the hotel window felt different than any morning Maya had experienced before. She was still wearing her dress from the night before, though David had given her a comfortable hotel bathrobe to wear over it. They had spent the entire night talking, sharing stories and dreams they had never told anyone else. And now reality was creeping in with the sunrise. David was gathering his belongings, preparing for his flight back to London in just a few hours. Maya watched him pack his small suitcase, feeling a strange mix of contentment and sadness. This magical night was ending, and soon they would both return to their separate lives in different countries. I should probably head back to my apartment and get ready for work, Maya said quietly, though she made no move to leave the comfortable chair by the window. Probably, David agreed, but he had stopped packing and was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. They had talked about everything except what would happen next. It was as if both of them were afraid that discussing the future would somehow break the spell of this perfect night. Maya had never felt so connected to another person, but she also had no idea if David felt the same way or if this was just a beautiful one-time experience for him. Maya, David said suddenly, sitting down on the edge of the bed so he could face her directly. I need to ask you something and I want you to answer honestly, even if you think it might hurt my feelings. Okay, Maya said, her heart starting to beat faster. Do you want this to end here? Because if you do, if this was just one perfect night and you want to leave it as a beautiful memory, I'll understand. I'll delete your number and we'll both go back to our lives and pretend this never happened. Maya felt a sharp pain in her chest at the thought of never seeing David again. Is that what you want? No, David said immediately. It's the last thing I want. But I also don't want to pressure you into something you're not ready for or don't want. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the busy street below. People were starting their normal workdays, rushing to catch buses and trains, focused on their own lives and responsibilities. 24 hours ago, she had been one of those people following her routine without question. I'm terrified, she admitted without turning around. Of me? Of this, of how much I don't want it to end. Of how different I feel after one night with you. Maya turned to face him. I've spent my whole adult life being careful and predictable. I plan everything weeks in advance. I don't make impulsive decisions. I certainly don't fall for men I've just met. And now? Now I feel like I've been sleepwalking through my life and you woke me up. Maya sat back down, this time choosing the spot next to David on the bed. I don't know what that means or where it leads, but I know I don't want to go back to sleepwalking. David reached for her hand. What if we figured it out together? What if we didn't worry about having all the answers right now and just took it one day at a time? But you live in London. I live here. We barely know each other outside of one incredible night. All true, David said. But people overcome bigger obstacles than distance when they find something worth fighting for. Maya felt tears in her eyes, though she wasn't sure if they were happy or sad tears. You think this is worth fighting for? I think you're worth fighting for, David said simply. I think what we found together last night is rare and special and stupid to throw away just because it's complicated. Maya thought about her presentation later that morning, the one she had been preparing for weeks. She thought about her comfortable apartment with its organized furniture and predictable routine. She thought about her 5-year plan and her career goals and all the safe choices that had brought her to this point. Then she thought about how alive she had felt talking to David about photography, about dreams, about the parts of herself she usually kept hidden. She thought about how natural it had been to open up to him, how right it felt to be sitting here in the morning light planning a future together. I've never done long distance, Maya said. Neither have I. We'll probably mess it up spectacularly. I'm not good at spontaneous decisions. You're better at them than you think. Look where you are right now. Maya laughed, surprising herself. True. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I would spend the night in a hotel room with a man I'd just met, talking until sunrise about starting over in life, I would have said they were crazy. And now? Now I'm wondering why I waited so long to do something crazy. Maya squeezed his hand. Okay, let's try this. Let's see what happens when two careful people decide to be brave together. David's face lit up with a smile that made Maya's heart skip. Really? Really? But I want to start with complete honesty about everything. No games, no pretending to be cooler or more together than we actually are. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Deal, David said immediately. Complete honesty. Starting now. Starting now, Maya agreed. 3 months later, Maya found herself on a plane to London, having requested a transfer to her company's European division. It was the most impulsive professional decision she had ever made, and it terrified and excited her in equal measure. She had spent weeks agonizing over the decision, making lists of pros and cons, researching neighborhoods and schools and tax implications. But in the end, the choice had been simple. David made her feel like the best version of herself, and she wasn't willing to let that go because it was complicated or scary, or different from her original life plan. They had talked every day since that night at the hotel, sharing everything from mundane work stories to deep fears about their future together. David had been patient with her need to plan and research every detail of the move, while she had encouraged him to start writing again, even sending him small photography projects to inspire his creativity. As the plane lifted off, Maya looked down at the city where she had lived for the past 5 years. From this height, it looked small and manageable, just one option among many rather than the entire world she had always thought it was. She pulled out her camera and took a picture of the clouds outside her window, thinking about the story she would write about this moment, because she had started writing too, inspired by David's passion and encouraged. by his belief in her ability to capture human moments with words as well as images. Maya thought about the woman who had attended that boring company party just 3 months ago, planning to stay for exactly 2 hours before escaping back to her safe, predictable life. That woman would never have imagined sitting on this plane, flying toward love and uncertainty, and the possibility of becoming someone completely different. But as scary as it was to leave everything familiar behind, Maya realized she had never felt more like herself than she did right now, choosing love over security, adventure over comfort, and the unknown over the predictable. When the plane touched down in London 6 hours later, David was waiting for her at the airport with flowers and a smile that reminded her exactly why she had been brave enough to change her entire life. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked, taking her hand as they walked toward baggage claim. "With you," Maya said, squeezing his fingers and thinking about all the stories they would write together, all the moments they would capture, all the ways they would continue to surprise themselves. "I'm ready for anything,"